Tense words were exchanged off Europa Point on Tuesday night.
Was initiated to make sure that the people of Gibraltar had a very direct seat.
Today there were words of support for Gibraltar's position from Labour's Shadow Minister for Europe. Unsurprisingly, Mr Thomas was less kind towards the UK government.
What I'm struck by is how quiet the Foreign Office seems to be. I think it's amazing that there's been no Foreign Office visit by a minister to Gibraltar since 2011. If I can find the time to come twice in the 6 months since I was appointed as Labour's Shadow Europe Minister, why can't Foreign Office ministers come out here and see for themselves the scale of the issues around the border, to understand directly the concerns around the civil aviation issues, and obviously to hear about the ongoing issues around incursions?
Well, it's hugely important for us that a front bench spokesman of one of the three main political parties in the United Kingdom has wanted to return to Gibraltar within 6 months of having first been here, within 6 months of having been appointed, and to have the opportunity to brief him in person on the ground in Gibraltar on all of the issues which are relevant, and has lived through with us the incursion that we saw 2 nights ago, and therefore understood also the emotional part that the people of Gibraltar have to suffer as a result of having these constant aggressions visited upon us by the Kingdom of Spain.
The reason I've come back so quickly, I was here 3 months ago with other colleagues just before Christmas, was to see if and understand whether the border delays were continuing to the same severity as they were before Christmas. And I was down at the border yesterday and could see the cars tracking back for potentially a 90-minute to 2-hour wait, and that seems to me completely disproportionate.
How upsetting is it for you as Chief Minister to experience such an incursion and to hear the Spanish government in Madrid saying, you know, Mr. You shouldn't have been there because these are Spanish waters?
Well, it's complete nonsense, and it's as upsetting for the Chief Minister as it is for every other citizen of Gibraltar, because we know that all the Spaniards are doing is wasting diesel that they can't afford in trying to make out a case that in law is absolutely nonsense. But look, this is the sort of thing that we have to put up with from a government in Spain that has demonstrated, as we said in our comments about this incident yesterday, that they're not interested in dialogue. They're just interested in prodding and bullying and harassing for their own internal purposes. Obviously, we've seen today that this is all over the Spanish newspapers. Surprise, surprise, this week there was a big story about whether the King of Spain had been involved in the 23F events of some years ago, and whether he had some involvement in the planning of that. All of a sudden,
just purely covering up their bad news.
Gibraltar takes up some more column inches that might otherwise have been taken up by an embarrassing story.
You'd forgive me or viewers for thinking, well, hang on, wasn't it a Labour government and Mr Hayne who was prepared to hand Gibraltar over to Spain, or at least strike a joint sovereignty deal? What assurances could you provide our viewers and listeners that there's a different approach within the Labour Party?
Well, we've learnt from the very strong message that the people of Gibraltar gave to our government at that time. So what we're very clear is that the people of Gibraltar have got to have the right to self-determination in terms of the relationship with Spain and the UK. What we believe very strongly is that the trilateral dialogue that we set up after that process is very important, and Gibraltar has got to have a seat at the table in any discussion about issues that affect Spain, Britain, and the people here. Now, there's been a lot of talk from the current UK government about returning to that trilateral dialogue, but not very much action. And what we would want to do, if we got it back into power, is to step up the pressure on the Spanish to come back to the negotiating table with the people of Gibraltar at that negotiating table to sort out the issues that there are between the three of us.
These are ongoing sovereignty issues, and it seems like Spain has encroached on Gibraltar waters in the La Linea Marina.
In a permanent way, not in a way that sees them come in and quickly pull out in a vessel. And of course there was an appropriate complaint in 1982. I don't think David Lidington does anything wrong in actually putting the scale of the thing in its proper context and describing the mileage in its proper context. I think it's appropriate. But the issue is, why weren't we doing something about it at the time? A note verbal might be very good about something that happens and you need to quickly make sure for legal reasons you get a note in. But in a 82, we might have had a barge or a tug or some other Gibraltar asset get in the way of them actually making that reclamation. You saw how they tried to get in our way when we were creating our necessary and important artificial reef. That is really the issue that we need to be asking ourselves. What happened in 82? 82 was the time of the Falklands. How apt is it that today is the 32nd anniversary of Argentina having made the assault, and that Mr. Andalusia thinks it appropriate to go and twin Algeciras with Tierra del Fuego because of the damage that the Falkland Islands and Gibraltar do to mighty Argentina and Spain. But those are the issues of 82, and we need to try and understand what happened then. But look what happened afterwards within the area already that was part of that groin that had been created. I don't think creates that much of an opportunity for the United Kingdom or Gibraltar to do much about it. But why didn't we do something in 82? I think that will always be the question to ask.
In the past 48 hours, Spanish incursions, Spanish government in Madrid saying these are Spanish waters, Mr. Lidington saying yes, some of this La Línea Marina is in Gibraltar waters. The Spanish are making inroads here.
Well, I mean, for example, if you look at the area of the isthmus, which is the area where the groin that you're talking about was created in 82, where the Alcaidesa Marina then came up thereafter. If they made any inroads, then those inroads were firmly and quickly dealt with on the day that we created the reef and we demonstrated that those waters are ours.
Rather than just having coffee with the ambassador occasionally, as the current Foreign Office seem to be doing, I actually think they need to come out to Gibraltar and understand properly the significance of the incursions for the people of Gibraltar. They could understand too the significance of the delays at the border as well, and that might prompt them to take some stronger action and to be a bit firmer with Madrid.
We brief all parliamentarians that are supporters of Gibraltar on what's happening at the frontier. I think the difference is that Gareth Thomas has come out and seen it for himself, and there's a huge value in that, in understanding the disruption that this causes throughout the rest of the airport area, how we sometimes need to also avoid disruption by diverting cars into Devil's Tower Road, the types of emotions that people go through when they're in the queue, the pedestrian queue. Yesterday was a particularly bad day weather-wise, the connection between queue and incursion and reaction and calling in of the ambassador. I think it's propitious that Gareth was here to understand all of that and to take back to London the impression that he will have of how Spain tries to play this transparent Machiavellian game in trying to strangle Gibraltar at the frontier.
There might be one or two Gibraltarians who will echo Mr. Thomas's call for the Foreign Office to send a minister to the Rock to experience firsthand the scale of the issues here.